Hello and welcome to this week's reading vlog. If you watched my last week's vlog, you may recognise this setup. I have in fact just filmed my wrap up for that vlog about half an hour ago, so I thought while I have a cute setup and while I have all of my books stacked up next to me, I may as well start off this week's vlog as well. So it is Monday morning, Monday the 21st of March, and again, if you watched my last week's vlog, you will know I am currently off work with COVID, so I am testing every morning, waiting for my 2 negative results, which will allow me to go back to work. But that has not yet happened. So in the meantime, for at least the next couple of days, I will be home. I will be staying away from people. So I will hopefully be getting a lot of reading done. I had a very productive week last week of doing lots of reading, aided both by the fact that I was off sick and also by Steph from Steph Love's Final Book Support Group Readathon, which I had a really productive time of and read nearly 2,000 pages last week, which was just incredible progress. So I have a couple of books still on the go from last week that I want to roll over into this week's vlog, and also a couple of new ones I want to start. So I thought I would just quickly take you through those, give you an idea of what to expect this week, and hopefully we carry on being just as productive. So the first one I have here that I am about a third of the way through is the 5th book in the 6 Tudor Queens series by Alison Weir. This one I have on loan from a friend, and this is the book that follows Catherine Howard, the 5th of Henry VIII's wives, and her story kind of before she comes to court and then when she becomes involved with and ultimately married to Henry VIII. Now, anybody who knows anything about Tudor history knows that Catherine's life as queen is very short, so we have actually managed to get a lot of Catherine's backstory and her growing up, which actually is the part of these books that I usually prefer to actually when they're queen. So this one is proving to be a bit more enjoyable than some of the others so far. I'm about a third of the way through, I don't know if you can see that there. So this one I think is my priority read for today, and I will hopefully get through as much of this as I can, maybe even finish it, who knows. They're very fast paced, these. Even though they are historical fiction, they read more like a contemporary in my head, so I hopefully will get through this one pretty quickly today. I also really want to start, no surprises here, Tyrant's Throne, the 4th and final book in the Greatcoat series by Sebastian de Castell. I have been binge reading this series over the past couple of weeks, thoroughly enjoying them. As I have done before, this is one of my favourite fantasy series. I am on my second read of these, so I read them for the first time about 2 years ago, around this time of year as well actually, so it feels really nostalgic rereading these, but I mainly listen to these actually on audiobook. I have the Audible audiobooks narrated by the wonderful Joe Jameson, my favourite audiobook narrator ever. I have raved about this man on my channel quite a lot. He narrates all of Sebastian de Castell's books and they are always tremendous. So as I say, listening to a lot of these while I'm out and about on my walks, but also reading physically little bits as well. So I'm very excited to dive into this one and finish off my wonderful adventure with the Greatcoats this couple of weeks. I then also am a little bit of the way through Master Artificer by Justin Call, so I think I'm at page 166. I started this one mid last week and then put it down because I was jumping between lots of different books. I was kind of mood reading a lot last week and I wasn't in the mood for this one alongside other books. I want to wait until I've finished all of my others and I can just focus on this one because I feel like it's a fantasy series that I want to take very seriously and to concentrate on reading. So I will hopefully get to this one in the latter part of the week once I have concluded some of these other ones that I'm in the middle of, but very excited to get the full reading experience of this one when I do eventually get to it. Also, is that not the most stunning cover? I absolutely love the design, all like the filigree patterns and that beautiful bird. It's so gorgeous. I then also have on this stack a book which I've actually borrowed from my library. So I have The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. Sorry, the glare of the sun on this cover, that's better. I've been meaning to read this book for quite some time. I think it was actually Beth from Books Nest who I saw recommend this book in one of her videos. Was it last year maybe? I have a list on my laptop that I just keep on going for when I watch videos and hear people talk about books and think, oh, I must give that one a go. It's actually a really short book and seems like such an interesting concept. So from what I understand, this follows 2 women in 2 different time periods. One in, I think, is it like Victorian times or something? And then one modern day. 18th century apothecary shop in London, and then present day London, a historian, I think. An aspiring historian. So we have this mystery surrounding the potential association between these 2 women and the history of this apothecary shop, and it just sounds really interesting. I say it's a very vague synopsis because I don't know much about this book, but I remember thinking at the time it sounds fascinating and a little bit different, so I'm hoping this will be a quick read and one that I'm very keen to get to. And then the final book I have, which I probably won't get to, but if for some reason I do manage to get through all of these, I also would like to get to The Golden Cage by J.D. Oswald. This was another one that I was potentially going to read last week, but decided against. I just had enough other things going on. But this is another one of my ongoing series that I want to continue with. So this is the third book in the Ballad of Sir Benfro series by J.D. Oswald, as I said, following a dragon called Benfro and a boy called Errol and their adventures across this kind of old-fashioned medieval style fantasy world. And I really like these books. They're very cosy fantasies for me. It's been about a year since I read the previous book in the series, so I don't want to leave it too much longer before I jump back into this, otherwise I'll be forgetting what I've read before. But this is kind of an outside one. I may not get to this one. I may roll this one over into April, but who knows, if I'm in the mood for it and the others aren't going to plan, or I've just read everything I want to, this might be making an appearance. Have you noticed? I seem to have a colour-themed TBR this week. Everything is purple, apart from this one, but it blends in. There's a lot of purple there, which is kind of unusual. I don't tend to read many purple books, but there we go. So that is my TBR stack for the week. If anything else comes up that I'm in the mood for, I will let you know as well. But for now, I think I'm going to get started with Catherine Howard. I will probably go and sit in the garden. I may also go for a walk at some point today. Who knows, but it's such a beautiful day. It's actually really warm today as well. So I think the garden is my first port of call. I will go and make a nice cold drink and sit in the sunshine and just enjoy my brief time off work. I will chat to you again later when I have some more updates for you. So it's now a lot later on Monday evening and I have very good news to report already. I finished my first book of the week. I have managed to complete reading the 5th in the Six Tudor Queens series, the Catherine Howard book, and I have mixed thoughts on this book. So, as always with these, I like the general premise of the story. I like the fact that we follow the Queen's side of the tale rather than just everything told historically from Henry VIII's point of view. I like, especially with ones such as this, that you follow a lot of the Queen's backstory before they meet Henry and before they become involved in his side of the court. So we had quite a lot of this. We had at least the first third of the book was Catherine growing up and her kind of the households, the noble society that she was involved in before she went to the royal court. So obviously that's a completely new story to me and therefore is more interesting. I do find them a little bit repetitive though, these books. It is very much the same framework for each one and the same kind of idea of lots of... it's just a lot of like relationship drama basically, which although it's historical and therefore a little bit more interesting, I'm not that bothered about. But nevertheless, that's part and parcel of the story and that's what we saw a lot of in this one. And then obviously Catherine's meeting with the king and her change in opinion of him really, from thinking he's just this old man basically, to suddenly becoming enthralled by the idea of being queen and therefore seeing Henry in a whole new light and actually having quite a grudging respect for him as well. And then of course then the tide's turning, of course, if you know anything about history, and Catherine's ultimate demise. And that's something else I actually don't like about these books, although I think it's something that Alison Weir does very well. I have the same feelings about the Anne Boleyn book as well, which also ends in tragedy. I really don't like the fact that obviously you know what's going to happen if you know history, but the whole story is centred around you growing to know these characters and coming to understand them, and if not actually like everything about them, then you really become familiar with them and you are rooting for them in certain ways. And then suddenly to see their worlds completely stripped down through just scandal and rumour and the ultimate power and whims of one person, and their lives are just destroyed and the people they care about are brutally killed, and I just hate to see that. I really am not a fan of like torture and murder just for the sake of a king's opinion. Like I find that a really difficult part of history to deal with and something I don't particularly like to read about. So the ending of this book was not very pleasant to read. Obviously I was expecting it, but it wasn't the most pleasurable part of the story. But the earlier part I did enjoy reading, and as I say, it's nice to see a little bit more of Catherine's specific story, because I didn't know a huge amount about her apart from that she was Henry's youngest queen. She wasn't queen for very long, and she was eventually beheaded because of some apparent affairs that she had with other young men either before or during her marriage to Henry. So all of that is covered, but obviously in a lot more detail. But I didn't find Catherine as annoying a character as I thought I would. I assumed they would paint the picture of her as being very kind of flighty and shallow, which was probably very judgmental of me. But she wasn't at all. There was a lot more to her, although she was so annoyingly naive. I was just shouting at her to stop being so stupid a lot of the time during this book, but nevertheless, it was enjoyable, but probably only a 3 out of 5 star for me. But I am nearly finished with this series now, so I do definitely want to get to the 6th and final book very soon, so I can return all these to my friend and then have finally completed another series. So, book number 1 done for the week already, which is very positive news. I want to carry on with the Greatcoat series tomorrow. I think I'm going to go for a walk and try and read some more of Tyrant's Throne. If not tomorrow, then Wednesday. I don't know how long I'm going to be off work for this week, but we will see. And I also really want to pick up The Lost Apothecary, which I've mentioned is on my TBR for the week. So I think maybe that one will be my first one to pick up tomorrow morning. I'm going to have a night off from reading now, having raced through the majority of this book today. So I think I might just watch a film or something this evening instead. But yeah, I'm thinking Lost Apothecary will be the next one, but stay tuned for more and I will chat to you again soon. Hello, so I have just come in from the garden and I have very good news to report. I have already finished reading The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. I only started this morning and I have absolutely raced through this book. It is only very short and it was written in a very, not simple, but just very easy to read style, very accessible. It felt a lot like a contemporary, even though only half of it was set in a modern day setting and the other half was historical fiction, but it very much read like that, so I was able to race through this book very, very quickly. And I'm pleased to say I was pleasantly surprised by this. I'd had it on a recommendation, like I said before, I think it was Beth from Book's Nest who I'd seen reading this and had recommended it, so I thought I will give this a try. It sounds like something I would be interested in the content of and slightly pushing me out of my comfort zone in having the contemporary twist to it. So I thought I would give it a go, and I'm really, really glad I did pick this up. This is a 4 out of 5 star read for me and a thoroughly enjoyable one at that. So now I've read it, I can give you a slightly better synopsis. So in this book we have split timelines between modern day. We follow a woman called Caroline who has come over from America to London for her 10th wedding anniversary, but is in fact spending it alone following the discovery of some infidelity of her husband. And she is basically trying to come to terms with all these changes in her life, looking back at her lost dreams of the past. And she ends up uncovering a bit of a mystery while she's in London of these apothecary murders back in the 1700s. The other half of our story follows those very characters in the 1700s. So we have the apothecary called Nella, who is kind of tasked with dispensing these very well disguised poisons to women across London who want to use them against oppressive men in their lives. And this is kind of an underground business for her. Obviously it's highly illegal, but these women tend to know how to get hold of her. They leave messages I think it's an empty grain barrel, and she has this hidden shop front behind what appears to be just a disused row of bookshelves, and it's all very quaint and exciting. And Nella's life is changed when she encounters a 12-year-old girl called Eliza, who comes to her shop one day and then falls in love with the apothecary business and wants to stay and help Nella. So we have these three women of varying ages in various time periods and how their lives intertwine across the ages, and all involved with the secrets behind these poisonings. So I really, really enjoyed this. As I said, even the modern stuff I found actually quite captivating because I could relate to Caroline's enthusiasm for history and her passion for discovery and finding out the secrets of what went on in the past life. So I really liked that. And also the historical side of it was exactly the kind of book I would read in isolation anyway. I do like a historical fiction. And anything about poisons is also a very niche interest of mine. I really, really enjoy learning about kind of the old medicinal properties of plants and how they could be used for both medicine and poison in very different quantities. It reminds me of a book I've got actually which looks into all the different poisons that are referenced in the Agatha Christie novels, and I thoroughly enjoyed reading that one too. So anything with poisons is always up my street. And as I say, very interesting, very captivating characters. Almost like a feminine stance from this book. Almost kind of a feminist stance in this book. Not overtly so, but it's definitely like a power to women type story, and showing how independent spirits are always the way forward. So I really enjoyed this. I may or may not purchase a copy of this for myself, but it was a 4-star and it's definitely something I would revisit in the future. So very glad I picked this one up. So I think that's probably going to be it for reading outside for me now. It's getting on for 6 o'clock and it's getting a little bit chilly out there, so that will probably be it for this evening, and I will try and do a little bit more reading now I'm indoors and get cosy. But I will check in with you again tomorrow to let you know how I'm getting on and where I am in terms of, am I ready to go back to work? I'm still doing my COVID tests every morning, but until I have 2 negatives in a row, I won't be going back. So at least 1 more day of reading will be done, but we will see how things go. But I will chat to you again very soon.
It's such a beautiful day. All I can hear is the bird song and the tractor in the nearby field, which probably sounds a bit like traffic, but it's actually not. It's much nicer than that. It's so pretty. I'm just checking if anyone's behind me. I've just come out for a walk, as I said, once again to my local hills. I've just been haunting this place recently. I absolutely love it. I've basically grown up walking through these woods and these hills, so it feels like home to me. And it's the perfect place for a wander around and listening to an audiobook, so that is exactly what I'm doing. I have started reading or listening to Tyrant's Throne, the 4th in the Greatcoat series by Sebastian de Castell. I'm once again joined on my walk, therefore, by the dulcet tones of Joe Jameson, my favourite audiobook narrator. So I intend to wander about for half an hour or so and then probably find a nice sheltered spot somewhere on the hilltop and sit in the sunshine and read the book physically, because I brought it with me in my bag also. So stay tuned for more beautiful B-roll of my hills, of the nature, and I will check in with you a bit later how I'm getting on with my reading.
I'm so enjoying being back with this series. I absolutely love them. They're just the most wonderful books. I love the characters so much. I feel like I know them. I feel like they're friends rather than just people I've read about twice. They're just such wonderful stories. So I'm also kind of sad that the series is nearly over because I raced through it so much in the past couple of weeks. I'm really sad to let this series go, but I know I can come back to them anytime, and I'm just thoroughly enjoying these stories. So I imagine Tyrant's Throne will be high priority for this week. So for now, I will enjoy the rest of my walk, enjoy a little bit more of my book, and I will check in with you later once I'm home and have some reading updates for you.
Hello, it is actually now Friday evening. I have been back at work for the last 2 days, very sadly. I've missed having my time at home and reading productivity already, but nevertheless, back into the swing of things just about, and now it is the weekend again, so I will have a couple of days to recover. I have found myself really tired the past couple of days being back at work and around people after so much time apart, and I'm feeling better in myself physically, but I think mentally it will just take a little bit longer to readjust back to normal. But as I said, got the next couple of days off for the weekend, so hopefully can recharge the batteries once again in time to get back to normal completely on Monday. So in terms of reading, I read absolutely nothing last night. I was just very tired and wanted to sit and do more mindless things, so I just actually watched a lot of YouTube videos. But this evening, being Friday evening, I do want to pick up a book. I don't, however, want to carry on with any of the things that I'm currently in the middle of. So I've said before about Master Artificer, I do want to get back to that one, but only once I've finished everything else off, so I can just focus completely on that book. And I would rather save the rest of Tyrant's Throne for over the weekend when I can actually go out on a walk and listen to the audiobook. This has been my preferred format, and as I'm nearing the end of the book, I really want to continue that to its conclusion. So I think that will be my main goal for over the weekend. So, I was thinking about what I would like to pick up, and I've been really in the mood for a classic recently, so I've decided to reread Pride and Prejudice. Bit of a random choice, but it is actually a favourite classic of mine, and in fact one of my favourite books of all time. I grew up watching the 1990s BBC adaptation of the story, and absolutely fell in love with both the story itself and the whole aesthetic of the thing. So the manners, the way they dress, the balls they go to, and the language they use as well. I was a big fan of all of these wonderful highfalutin words that little me as a child barely understood, but really was desperate to learn how to use and to understand. So at age 9, I decided to read the book for the first time, got through it and absolutely loved it, and have reread it many times since, though not for a few years. So I think it's high time I do reread this one. And I'm really excited for kind of the nostalgia factor of this one. As I said, it's been a few years since I read it, but it was a childhood favourite story. So I'm very excited for that one. So I've decided to pick that up this evening. I have actually got 3 copies of this book. It's one of 2 books, this and The Hobbit, that I have more than 2 copies of. A couple of other favourites I do have duplicate copies of, just the 2, but mostly I only own 1 copy per book. But Pride and Prejudice being a favourite and having so many gorgeous editions out there as well is one that I have actually collected a few over the years, which I will show you now actually, and we can decide which one I actually want to pick up this evening. So these are the 3 editions that I have. First of all, on the left you can see my oldest copy. I had this a very long time ago. It's a very kind of vintage classic cover. This was part of a series of classics actually, which I think my grandma got free or from some deal through the newspaper when I was very young, and she gifted them to me just as kind of a collection for the future, which obviously subconsciously inspired my desire to collect as many books as I can throughout my life. So this is the one that I've read the most. It's kind of yellowing a little bit at the edges. I also have a picture of my neighbour's cat, which I was absolutely in love with as a child, so that's very nostalgic. But so this is just a beautiful standard edition, but one which I have had great fun reading over the years and love to pick up at any point. But obviously with it being my favourite classic, I thought I would have to invest one day in some special editions. So the first of those, which I got a couple of years ago, is this absolutely stunning edition. This is one of the Penguin Classic leather-bound editions with this sort of soft brushed suede type leather. Gorgeous black cover with the gold peacock feather design. I absolutely love these editions. I have a couple of these, and they have quotes as well. So that on the front it says, "Till this moment I never knew myself." And on the back we have a quote of Elizabeth talking to Darcy when they dance at one of the balls. And this is just the most beautiful edition. So it has the black end papers, it's got a little black ribbon bookmark in there as well. Beautiful clear print, and I have thoroughly enjoyed reading from this edition also. It's a proper collector's edition, and this one normally lives on my favourites shelf, which I believe I still have not got round to showing you in any of my videos, so definitely that will be on the list sometime soon to take you through my favourite shelf of my special editions. And then my most recent acquisition, but possibly the cutest of the three, is this gorgeous little one which has beautiful gold gilded edges and a beautiful kind of duck egg blue cloth bound cover. It does actually come with a dust jacket, but I took that off because I'm not a big fan of dust jackets, and I really love this cloth bound cover. I'm not sure if you can see, but it's actually embossed with oak leaves and acorns and the Tudor roses. It's a very, very British edition, and you can see in the end papers as well, again, that same oak leaf and acorn design. I love these classics, these little mini pocket editions. It's the perfect edition to take with me if I want to go anywhere and just have a favourite classic with me. I think they are the Mansfield editions. Let me see. Oh no, Macmillan. I'm thinking of Mansfield Park, clearly. Macmillan Collector's Library editions they are. And they also, what's beautiful about these, they've also got a lot of illustrations. So they have these sort of engraving style pictures with a quote that's relevant to them underneath. And there's quite a lot of these throughout the book, which just adds to the atmosphere, I think, and really sets the tone of the Regency period and what our characters perhaps would have looked like. So I thoroughly enjoy reading from this one as well. So, a beautiful trio to pick from. I think I'm probably going to take my original one outside though, because it doesn't matter if this one gets a little bit more battered because it's not quite so valuable to me and to be kept as pristine as the others. But I probably will dip into all three of these and maybe even read a little bit as an ebook as well if I want to read this when I'm at work at some point. So lots of formats to choose from, but I am so excited to get back into my favourite classic, and hopefully I will let you know some thoughts as I go along and just have a thoroughly good time with this one. Hello, so it is now the next day, it is Saturday morning, and I appear to be embracing the whole aesthetic of vintage things at the moment. I have this beautiful dress on, which I had completely forgotten I owned, but I'm just loving flouncing about the garden in this, and it's just wonderful. But anyway, so I have made a very good start with Pride and Prejudice. I'm reading this edition at the moment. This is my beautiful Penguin Classics edition, which I just absolutely adore. And I've read the first section of this book, so I am up to the start of part 2, so I'm about a third of the way through now. I'm loving this so much. I'm loving it even more on a reread than before. It's, as I expected, the nostalgia factor is very high with reading this, and I think I do actually want to rewatch the adaptations of it as well. I have both the 1990s BBC one and the Keira Knightley film version as well, so I think I will probably watch both of them. It's actually one of those rare books and, well, stories that I tend to enjoy every single version of it that I see, so usually I will have kind of one stereotypical, this is my version and that's it, you know, and then if anyone does a remake, I never like it as much because it's not the way that I see the characters. But actually with this one, I could read or watch any different version of it and thoroughly enjoy it, I think, because I just love the characters and the story so much. The language, once again, is absolutely tremendous, and it's actually surprisingly amusing as well. I found myself giggling at a lot of parts of this, which I'd forgotten how comedic it was. I think this one and Emma of Jane Austen's works are the most funny. But it's really, really good, and I think the wit is very amusing to me as well. I like intellectual writing, so a thoroughly brilliant book. So I think I'm going to go make some tea, go back into the garden and read a bit more of this one, and then head out for a walk a bit later on and try and finish off listening to Tyrant's Throne. So I will probably update you on my thoughts for that one a little later on today and give you a bit more reading progress. Hello, it is now Sunday evening and I'm just checking in to wrap up this week's vlog. So I have had a very productive weekend of reading, among lots of other things as well. I have managed to make some more progress with Pride and Prejudice, which I will be rolling into next week, but I anticipate finishing in the next day or two of the week, and I'm just loving this book so much. I will give you my full thoughts in next week's vlog, but definitely set to be, once again, a 5 out of 5 stars, as was Tyrant's Throne by Sebastian de Castell, which I have finished off this afternoon on my walk, and oh my gosh, I love this book so much. So first and foremost, the characters are just tremendous. It's my favourite thing about the book. Our main trio are just absolute perfection. The bond between them, the witty banter they have, it's just so believable, and I just want to be best friends with all of them. I think they're just wonderful. The whole series, and this book especially, is just such an incredible balance of constant action, speeches, political plotting, travelling the country on these increasingly wild adventures with a generous handful of battles, torture, heartbreak, even a hint of romance too. It literally has everything I could want from a story, and it's just brilliant. And actually, considering this book is a series conclusion, which I very often dislike as I hate endings, I feel like it's so well constructed. It's definitely bittersweet as a feeling, but the structure of the characters' lives, you know, travelling the country and working towards these end goals, would have to have changed anyway, no matter what the general outcome of the main plot was. But they all finish up the series with a new challenge or a new goal to achieve, which gives them a purpose, and also does give us scope for more stories in the future. So I'm really hoping for a Tales of the Greatcoats Part 2 at the very least, if not any more full novels. But any more content with these characters I will just eagerly eat up, because it's just one of my favourite things ever. So, as I've said many times before as well, I would highly recommend the audiobooks as a way of consuming these stories. The narration completely brings the characters to life and the excitement of the story, and it's just so beautifully told, so beautifully narrated by the wonderful Jo Jameson. I could just keep listening to these again and again. They never fail to make me smile. So this has been a very successful end to the week. I have absolutely adored rereading this series. It remains one of my absolute favourites of all time. 5 out of 5 stars for every single book in it, and I don't know what I'm going to do with myself now I've finished this, but nevertheless, we will carry on to greater things, I'm sure, or at least to different things next week. I do definitely want to get back into Master Artificer finally, so once I finish Pride and Prejudice, that will be my next goal. So without further ado, I will leave this vlog here. Thank you very much for watching, as always. Leave me a like down below if you enjoyed it. Chat to me in the comments about any of the books I've read this week, anything else you'd like to discuss with me. I do love to hear from you. And please consider subscribing if you'd like to see more content from me. It really helps and means a lot too. Thank you for watching. I will see you very soon in next week's video, so goodbye for now.